Tammy Slaton, a star of 1000 LB Sisters, talks about her wedding plans with her fiancé Andrea Dalton in a TikTok video. Fans are reacting to the strange theme of the event. Tammy declared her engagement to Andrea in June 2025, just a few months after they made their relationship public. It seems like the couple is in full swing with planning their wedding because they responded to a fan's suggestion for a Kentucky Wildcats basketball-themed party. You can watch episodes of 1000 LB Sisters for free on 9 now. Most people wouldn't think of basketball as a wedding motif, but it seemed to be precisely what the couple wanted. Tammy and Andrea were amazed by one follower's idea for a blue, white, and orange wedding with a basketball court dance floor, a basketball guest book, and a flower girl in a sports jersey. "Oh my God, it looks great," Tammy and Andrea said. Fans in the comments were loving how the couple reacted. One person said, "This is too sweet. The excitement in your eyes is what I love the most. Congratulations to you both." Someone else added, "Tammy, you look so happy. Lots of love." Tammy is getting ready for her wedding at the same time as her sister Amy, who is engaged to Brian Scott Levorn. Amy and Brian have talked a lot about how they want their wedding to be Halloween-themed, so it seems like Tammy is staying away from anything like that. Tammy and Andrea are getting married. Tammy declared her engagement to Andrea just a few months after their romance became public. Tammy, who is 39, let the news slip while she was on the Creative Chaos podcast this week. When the reality star talked about her relationship, she called Andrea her fiancé, which stopped the presenter in his tracks. Tammy blushed as she confirmed the exciting news and held up her sparkling engagement ring. The host and Tammy's millions of fans were shocked by the news because they had only recently learned about Tammy and Andrea's relationship, even though the couple has been together for almost 3 years now. How did Andrea and Tammy get to know each other? Andrea talked about how she and Tammy met in a Season 7 episode of 1000 LB Sisters. "I recently joined on a dating app and met Tammy there. I wasn't on there for very long. We saw each other and started talking. We've been talking every day since." Andrea hasn't disclosed many facts about career or personal life and keeps her own social media profiles private. Fans have only seen bits and pieces of Andrea on the show and what Tammy has posted about her on social media. Tammy remarked, "All we know is that Andrea seems to make Tammy very happy. Andrea is beautiful, and I like everything about her. I do like Andrea, but right now we're just taking things slow, day by day." Tammy talks about her as ***. Tammy was worried that her family wouldn't accept her dating a woman before she made her relationship with Andrea official. Tammy's relationship with Andrea was her first since her husband Caleb Willingham died in June 2023. The 38-year-old woman, who had already come out as pansexual, said she wants to date in a different way. "After Caleb died, I just don't want to be with a man anymore," Tammy told cameras. Tammy told her admirers about her dating preferences again in January 2024, months after Caleb died. "I was saying I was pansexual, but I kinda stopped messing with guys after my husband died," she said in a TikTok video. "So, I'm like a lesbian." While Tammy was pleased for this new chapter, she wasn't sure how her family would take her relationship news. Tammy stated, "I haven't told my family because I know they'll have something to say about it. I don't know how my family will react when I tell them I'm dating a woman." But Tammy's family quickly accepted her new relationship. Her older sisters, Misty Wentworth and Amanda Halterman, were quite supportive. "It don't matter to me," Misty said to Tammy after she told her. Amanda agreed, saying, "I don't care as long as she treats you well." But the sun had just risen over Dixon, Kentucky, and it cast a soft golden light over the Slaton sisters' home. Inside, Amy was pacing nervously around the living room, her hospital bag packed and ready by the door. Tammy sat in her motorized chair, fiddling with her phone and pretending to be calm, but anyone could see that she was anxious. They had been working toward this day for more than a year. After months of dieting, therapy, exercise, and many doctor's appointments, both Amy and Tammy were finally ready for their weight loss surgery. It was a huge step that seemed unachievable when they first started their quest. Amy said, "I can't believe it's really happening," and looked at her sister. "Are you ready for this, Tam?" Tammy smirked a little. I was born ready. Well, maybe not born ready, but I've been ready since I couldn't tie my own shoes without almost passing out. The jokes helped ease the stress, but both sisters realized that the road ahead would be hard. Surgery wasn't a miracle fix. It was a tool that would require fortitude and discipline to work. Chris, their brother, came to pick them up and take them to the hospital. At first, the ride was quiet, except for Chris's attempts to make them laugh with dad jokes. But when they got to the hospital parking lot, reality hit. Amy was scared. What if something went wrong? Tammy, surprisingly, was the one who reached over and squeezed Amy's hand. Tammy responded, "We got this," and her voice was firm. "We're going to walk out of here as different women." Inside the pre-op room, staff moved quickly, checking vital signs, establishing IVs, and describing the procedure. Amy went first, and the sisters were scheduled back-to-back. TLC cameras caught every tear, chuckle, and muttered prayer. Tammy sat by herself in the waiting area, watching at the clock. She thought about all the things she had missed in life: visiting to amusement parks, flying on a plane, and walking without pain. This surgery was her second opportunity, and she wasn't going to waste it. A few hours later, both sisters were awake and recovering. Amy was able to smile weakly from her hospital bed. "We did it, Tam," she said. Tammy, still groggy from the anesthesia, murmured, "I'm going to have abs by Christmas." The nurses laughed, but Chris knew his sisters were serious. This wasn't simply a medical treatment. It was the start of a whole new chapter. At the end of the episode, Amy and Tammy were seen holding hands in the hospital room. They realized that no matter how hard things got, they could do anything together. But the Slaton family was have one of the most stressful days of their lives. It was the day before the sun rose over Dixon, Kentucky. This episode of 1,000-Pound Sisters wasn't just another weigh-in or family fight. It was a turning point. Tammy sat silently in her wheelchair, with her oxygen tank hissing softly next to her. She had shed more than 150 pounds since she had been in rehab, but the moment she had been working toward, her bariatric surgery, was finally here. The air outside the hospital was cold, and Tammy was very nervous. "What if something goes wrong?" she muttered to her sister Misty, her voice quivering. "I fought so hard to get here." At the same time, Amy wasn't at the hospital. She was across town, nervously waiting in a courthouse waiting room. Her trial for reckless driving that had turned into community service violations was set for the same morning as Tammy's surgery. The cruel twist of fate meant that the sisters couldn't be together during these life-changing events. A team of nurses got Tammy ready in the operating room. Dr. Proctor, the surgeon, told her, "You've done your part, Tammy. Now, let us do ours." The camera stayed on her hand, grasping the blanket tightly as the anesthesia started to act. At the courthouse, Amy's lawyer told her to stay calm. "We'll push for leniency," he said as he slid a stack of papers toward her. Amy nodded and tried to concentrate, but her mind kept going back to her sister on the operating table. "If anything happens to her and I'm not there?" Amy's voice trailed off, and her eyes filled with tears. The episode switched back and forth between tense surgery footage and courtroom drama. At one point, Tammy's heart rate shot up during the procedure, forcing Dr. Proctor to stop. In the courthouse, Amy was asked to take the stand, and her voice shook as she talked about her recent problems, her postpartum depression, and her deep fear of losing Tammy. Hours later, both stories got good news. Tammy's surgery was a success, but it would take a long time and a lot of work for her to get better. She woke up dazed but alive, and tears ran down her cheeks when she realized she had made it. The judge gave Amy more community service and counseling instead of jail time since she was honest and tried to become better. She stepped out of the courthouse just in time to get the call from Misty. "She's okay. Tammy made it." In the last scene, Amy ran to the hospital in her courthouse clothes while Tammy put out her hand. The sisters held hands and didn't say much. They didn't have to. Their eyes spoke the tale. They had made it through the roughest day of season 7 together in spirit, even when they were separated. The narrator's voice ended the episode. Things are never easy for the Slaton family. But today showed that love keeps them together even when life drags them apart. And sometimes, getting through the roughest times is just the start.
But
It was a bright afternoon in Kentucky when Tammy Slaton sat in her living room and stared at the sunlight coming through the blinds. Her heart was beating, not because of her health or the usual family drama, but because she was finally ready to divulge something she had kept secret for years. The Slaton family was used to Tammy's fiery personality and sarcastic jokes, but today there was no teasing in her eyes. Amy, Chris, and Amanda sat on the couch and looked at each other with interest. Even Gage, Amy's toddler, seemed to sense the unusual tension and was unusually quiet, playing with his toy truck. Tammy took a big breath. "You all know me better than anyone. You've seen me at my worst and my best, but there's one thing I've been keeping from you." Amy leaned in, worried. "Tammy, is this about your health again? Did the doctors say something?" Tammy shook her head, her voice shaking a little. "No, this isn't about my health or my weight. It's about who I am in here." She put her palm over her heart. Chris crossed his arms, which was his customary way of being a protective brother. "Okay, just say it, sis. You're making us nervous." Tammy's eyes were wet as she looked at each of them. "I'm gay. Well, I guess you could say I'm bisexual. I've been attracted to women for a long time. I just never had the guts to tell you all." For a while, the room was quiet. Amy's mouth dropped open a little, Amanda blinked twice, and Chris's forehead furrowed in astonishment. "Tammy," Amy spoke first, "do you mean to tell me that all those times I tried to set you up with guys?" "Yeah," Tammy said with a laugh. "I was just sitting there thinking about how cute the waitress was instead." Amanda laughed a lot. "Well, that clears things up." Chris smiled and shook his head. "Sis, you could have told us sooner. We don't judge you. I'm just glad you're finally happy enough to be honest." Tammy's shoulders relaxed, and she felt better. She had thought there would be awkward silence or perhaps tension, but instead, her family moved closer. Amy reached out and took her hand. "Tammy, you're our sister. Who you love doesn't change that. We love you no matter what." The remainder of the afternoon was filled with light joking, loving hugs, and even some brainstorming about Tammy's future dating life. For the first time in years, she felt lighter, not because of the scale, but because a weight had been lifted from her heart. Tammy wrote a short statement on social media that night. "Being yourself is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. I'm proud of who I am. Love you all." And for Tammy Slaton, it marked the start of a new chapter in which she could finally live her truth without being afraid.
But
Tammy and Amy Slaton had never been outside of the U.S. before. One cold morning in Kentucky, Amy came into Tammy's bed with 2 big envelopes. "Tammy, guess what?" Amy said, waving the papers like they were golden tickets. Tammy grumbled, still half asleep. "If it's another coupon for fried chicken, I'm going to." "No, these are tickets for a plane. We're going to London." Tammy's eyes got big. "London? Like Big Ben, tea, and those red double-decker buses?" "Exactly," Amy said with a smile. "The TLC crew is sending us to the UK for a special episode." The Slaton sisters never found it easy to get ready for a trip. First, they had to get their passports. Amy unintentionally filled out Tammy's form with a baby picture of herself from 1988, which made Tammy angry. Then it was time to pack. Amy filled 3 suitcases with clothes, snacks, and enough makeup to launch her own beauty salon. Tammy packed differently. 3 boxes of Twinkies, a big jar of pickles, and a cushion that looked like a corgi. Amy replied to her sister, "Tammy," as she saw her sister stuff an inflatable pool float fashioned like Big Ben into her bag. "You know they already have landmarks in London, right?" Tammy smiled. "Yeah, but I'm taking my own just in case there's breaks." Understanding British, Amy thought they should practice speaking British to get ready for London culture. She watched a lot of British dramas and started saying phrases like pip pip and cheerio. Tammy didn't believe her. "Amy, you sound like a cartoon squirrel." They still tried. At the grocery shop, Amy told the cashier, "I'll have a cart full of crisps, please." The cashier just stared. The sisters showed up at the airport with enough bags to fill a bus. Security was an adventure. Tammy's bag was flagged for mysterious objects, which turned out to be a gigantic jar of peanut butter and a life-sized cutout of Harry Styles. Tammy said, "Emergency comfort." Finally, they got on the plane. Amy was frightened but eager, while Tammy kept wondering when the Sky Snacks would be there. Amy looked at Tammy and muttered, "Can you believe this? We're really going to London," as the jet lifted off. Tammy smiled and said, "I just hope they have a KFC over there." The sisters clinked their little cups of airline soda far over the Atlantic and dreamed about all the fun things they would do, like having tea at Buckingham Palace, taking pictures with Big Ben, and maybe even meeting a royal or two. They had no idea that their trip to London was going to be one of the most memorable and funny trips of their life. But the morning sun peered through the windows of Amy's quaint Kentucky house, sending a warm glow over the kitchen table where a half-finished dish of scrambled eggs sat next to a coffee mug. Amy sat there nervously tapping her fingers. Today was the big day, weigh-in day. Tammy, on the other hand, wasn't as happy. She was still in her recliner and watched her sister with suspicion as Amy moved around. "Why are you so jittery? You already know you did better than me," Tammy said, crossing her arms. Amy rolled her eyes. "Tammy, it doesn't matter who did better. We're both trying to get healthy. This is for us, for our kids, and for our future." Tammy laughed. "You sound like Dr. Smith," she observed, but a faint smile showed that she was paying attention. They had been getting ready for this weigh-in for weeks. They walked short distances every morning, switched soda for flavored water, and even tried zucchini noodles instead of spaghetti. Amy loved cooking healthier meals, but Tammy was still getting used to eating smaller quantities. Chris, the sisters' younger brother, drove up and honked his truck's horn. "Y'all ready to roll?" he yelled. "Dr. Smith's waiting, and he ain't the patient type." The ride to the clinic was uncomfortable. Tammy played with her phone while Amy tried to keep the conversation light. Chris told jokes to break the silence, but both sisters knew the moment of truth was coming. The waiting area was colder than usual when they got there. The nurse called Amy first. Amy took a deep breath, stepped on the scale, and watched the computerized numbers go up until they eventually stopped. 348 pounds, the nurse stated with a smile. "That's 12 pounds less than last month." Amy's eyes got big with astonishment. 12 pounds. "Did you all hear that? I've been working my butt off, literally." She chuckled, and a mix of relief and pride spread across her face. Then it was Tammy's turn. She wheeled herself over to the scale, her jaw set. Chris nodded at her to encourage her. Slowly, she walked onto the platform, and the numbers blinked. 544 pounds, the nurse said. "That's 3 pounds less than last time." Tammy let out a heavy sigh. "Only 3 pounds, she murmured, seeming disappointed. Dr. Smith, on the other hand, spoke in a stern but compassionate voice. "Tammy, that's still progress. Any loss is a step in the right direction. You didn't gain, and that's a big deal. It means your efforts are working, even if they're taking longer than you want." Tammy looked away for a second, her eyes glazed over. Then she nodded. "I guess I did try harder this month. I even turned down cheesecake twice." Amy gave her sister a soft hug and added, "See? That's victory." They stopped at a park on the way home after the appointment. The sisters sat on a seat, drank bottled water, and watched the sunset change the sky's colors to pink and orange. Tammy added quietly, "You know, I used to think these weigh-ins were just about numbers. But maybe it's more about proving to myself that I can do it." Amy grinned and said, "That's right. And we're doing it together, 1 pound at a time." They clinked their water bottles together like champagne glasses. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time in years, both sisters felt like they were really on it, side by side.